Good evening. So, when was the last time you felt heard? You felt uninterrupted. You felt not corrected. You felt not judged. I want you to take a pause and I want you to reflect on this question. Just a few seconds. Now, in this pause and in this question, if you experienced what I call as awkwardness, if you experienced what I call as a gap, if you experienced a silence that you could not demystify, then my dear friends, that is what we are going to discuss today. Because in Voices Unbound, I do believe that it's important for us to re-look at how are we redesigning listening? How are we looking at the power of listening? So let me cite a very interesting example that happened. A couple of years back, all of you are familiar with the world of digital assistants, right? And when I say digital personal assistant, the first set of names that come to your mind will say Siri, you'll talk about Alexa, and so many more that are there today. So a couple of years back, we were having a very heated but a constructive argument, a conversation that was bordering more towards an argument and a debate on an idea, a potential opportunity and an idea at the workplace. Now, as this conversation was progressing, this is very intense. So you must understand that we would have touched different octaves, right, as the conversation progressed. And what do we find? Suddenly, out of the blue, from nowhere, the colleague with whom this conversation was underway, there was a voice that popped out from my colleague's phone. And the voice very clearly said, I think you're getting agitated. And I think there is some nervousness that I sense. So I think you should take a pause and listen to your favorite shlokas and catch up on a chocolate. So this was the personal digital assistant that was listening to this entire conversation that was going on. We didn't intend it to, but obviously it was an activated mode. So it was listening, and it did two things which made us very uncomfortable. Of course, we laughed. We laughed and laughed for a couple of minutes, realizing what had just happened. But then it did point us to two very, very important realizations. Realization number one, there is a machine that's listening to us, and that machine now is a mobile or a phone, right? So we've got a mobile listening to us, a mobile that's giving us a point of view when we haven't asked about it. And most importantly, it's able to not just go beyond command, but it's also trying to extrapolate context. So my dear friends, the question that I have for all of you is that if my phone can listen, why can't we? We are moving to an era today where artificial intelligence, every morning you wake up, there is a new update that's coming up on social media. And most importantly, all of us, each and every one of us, are actually buried with a deluge of social media platforms every single day. You have your own set of preferences. So we are listening from all kinds of channels, right? But we're also sharing. Now, there is an interesting statistic which says that the number of people who actively contribute to social media is far lesser than the number of people who actually consume from it. So you've got a lot more consumers and a fewer producers. But that was 2 years back. Today, thanks to the power of AI and thanks to the amazing number of applications that are getting built using artificial intelligence and other models, you have a plethora of tools there that has literally compressed the divide between a consumer and a producer, between a consumer and a creator. So all of us in some way or other are leveraging the power of these tools to become what we call as prosumers. So we are producing, we are also consuming. So in an era where there is so much of clutter around us, there is so much of delusion, there is so much of channels that we are, what is happening to the power of listening? What is happening to the intent of listening? So this comic that I created for all of you is saying something like this. So there's a conversation that's happening between two friends, and look at what has happened to the entire intent of listening, the intent of the conversation itself. So between the intent, the content, and the recipient, look at the kind of gaps that are emerging. And I'm sure when you look at this comic strip, many of you would have encountered this when you're having conversation with your friends, your family, your peers, right, in different spaces. So where are we today? So we are living in an age of microphones. And what do we mean by that? So social media has given us a lot of platforms. Every other day there is some platform extension, platform update, upgrade that comes to us. If you look at the world of work, at the workplace, you get feedback forms, right? Now if you look at governments, what does government give us? Government gives us consultations. So there are policies, there are regulations, there are guidelines that keep coming up as technology changes, import-export rules change, macroeconomic conditions vary, geopolitical norms govern us, right? So we have a whole lot of consultations. What do organizations do? Organizations are saying, okay, give us open, constructive, progressive feedback. We'd like to have open communication. Now with so many platforms and so many channels and so many avenues in front of us, why is it that we are staring at such an inherent paradox? And that paradox is that more and more people feel that they are not being heard the way they want to be heard. And that is why today, ladies and gentlemen, my focus is that in Voices Unbound, it's not about increasing your voice. It's not about being louder. It's not just about being the power of a voice, but it's more about increasing the power of listening. It's about redesigning, reactivating, reimagining systems and environments that allow us to listen better. I'll share a very interesting episode that happened way back. This was like very early in my career. And the situation is such. So we have this very important customer, a marquee customer of ours, and the opportunity in front of us is the customer is coming over for a visit to our organization. And as part of that visit, one of the important things is to look at certain functions that I was managing along with another colleague of mine, and that colleague is a much senior. I'm saying this is the entry point of my career. So in this scenario, there were two things. One was, okay, this client is coming. What do we put together to convince the customer that we are really good at the entire workforce transformation agenda that the customer wants to hear about? So that's the whole piece of the agenda. Okay, so what do we do to put together? So that's one. And second, what is it that we show to the customer futuristically as a roadmap, saying that we have it, and what we have today is not going to determine what we do tomorrow, because we understand that workforce dynamics is a continuously evolving ecosystem. So we've got what we call as an inherent or a native agility to respond to a situation like this. So this is the convincing that we had to do to the CEO and his team that was visiting us. Great scenario. So what happened? So the colleague that I worked with, much senior in terms of experience, had a point of view. And what did I do? I was listening to that point of view, and I was listening to that point of view very actively. And during the course of that listening exercise, I realized that what is being suggested as a point of view will not fly. Because one, it looks very done and dusted, first point. Second, it doesn't seem convincing enough. When you're going to present this to the customer, they'll say, they heard this, done that before, but haven't seen impact. So how are you different? Very important question. How are you different? Because what you're telling your customer, I'm very different. So that's my differentiation. So I was listening. And through the course of the listening, all I said was, this will not fly. And the next reaction that happened was, how can you say something like this? What have you seen? You would have not even seen 10% of what I have seen, so how can you make a statement like this? So what came out was a complete dismissal of a point of view that was being tabled after active listening. So I listened again, very quietly, and I understood what's the play out here. And I had a choice, and the choice was to keep quiet or convert what I had picked up through that very active listening that I'd done on the entire point of view as an independent perspective. And that's exactly what I did. I said, I hear you, you've got the authority, but here's why I believe if we do it like this, this will work. I tabled it, put together a whole perspective on that, sent it to the people that we all work with, including decision makers, and I left it at that. What happened within the next few hours was that the entire team that's supposed to be working, including manager, everyone, they said, no, we hear you, Ambika, and this will definitely work the way you're putting it together. So it was not the power of voice, it was not the power of screaming, shouting, demonstrating authority and saying, I am right and you better listen to me, no. But it was the power of active listening with intent, listening with an open mind, and then putting together expertise, experience, exposure, possibilities, of course sprinkled with elements of innovation and differentiation. That took us, so it was a perfect 6 what we presented to the customer. The customer was super happy, and whatever we were supposed to get as additional work because of what we did came to us. So that, my friends, is the power of listening. And that is what makes a difference in the world that we live in the very, very noisy world that we live in. So every system, remember, every system that we have designed today, that we inhabit, either out of compulsion or out of a natural progression, every system, I emphasize again today, has been designed in such a way that we have to listen bottom upwards. And the voice is always top down. So listening is bottom up, whereas talk and voice is top down. Just look at it in a classroom. So you are celebrated when you answer questions, right? Let's flip it and say, let's celebrate when you ask more questions, right? Look at a boardroom. What happens in a boardroom? Seniors talk, juniors listen. Look at hospitals. In a hospital, the doctor is talking and the patient is listening. I had a very bad encounter a couple of months back. So I had gone to one of the specialists, and this was a second referral because I had a knee issue and it was just not getting all right. And that entire 15 minutes in the doctor's chamber, the doctor was asking me questions, and the questions didn't have the appropriate phrases or terms that I could relate to. So when I was trying to extrapolate that question and say, I know you asked me this, but what I want to tell you is that's not where the pain originated. There is a background, there's a lineage to this pain. And the doctor was dismissive. The doctor said, I don't want to listen to this. You just have to answer what I've asked. I said, but if what you have asked doesn't have what I want to tell you, because there is no connection, there is no context, how do you expect me to answer? He said, no, that's okay. You take your time. You want to take a few seconds, think. You will have an answer. I said, no, I don't have an answer. So what happened in that doctor's visit is I realized that in a doctor-patient relationship, doctor has to listen to the patient patiently, because that patient hearing is half the symptoms gone. So we have systems that are designed more for voices and less for listening, whereas it should be the other way around. So whether it's court, whether it's a home, whether it's cities, and even algorithms today. So when our AI assistants started off, the Siris and Alexas of the world, what were they? They used to work on commands that you and I used to give them. And today, all those AI systems and interfaces have moved into not command. From command, they moved into context. From context, they moved into emergent. Today, they have emotions. You ask them a question, they say that's fantastic. Or they say this is abstract. Don't you think you should double click something else? I can help you rewrite the whole thing. I can redo the whole presentation for you. So it's gone into suggestive nature. So why? Because we've trained our AI systems and AI models to listen to us. Listen to us. Listen and respond. And that, my friends, is the power of listening. So when the room is not designed to listen, that's where voices get bound, right? So what does design for listening mean? It means that we have to create environment, we have to create systems, we have to create shared spaces, we have to alter our behaviors. All of you sitting here are actually listening to me, or that's what I assume, right? Because I can't see you. But are you listening actively? Are you absorbing the drift of what I am saying, what I am double clicking? Now that depends on how you have mentally tuned yourself. What is your behavior for active listening, right? So that's important. So what is the shift that we need? All this is great, but this is how we've been curated, cultured, evolved, emerged. So what should change? There are three important areas that need to change. The first and foremost, we have to move or shift from what I call as speed to presence. What does that mean? Today, we celebrate saying, you know what, I sent an email and I got a response within a few seconds. Look at the speed at which the person has replied. But what has gone into that reply? Is it just an acknowledgement that I have received the mail? Now, is that what you want? Then we have to go through a ticketing system, right? So when you communicate, depending upon the channels of communication, the medium of communication, we say omni-channel support today. So depending on the nature of the channel, so is it all about reacting and responding, or is it about presence? So that's an important shift that needs to happen. The second thing is we move from power to curiosity. Why? Because as a child, I was always recognized and celebrated just because of the sheer number of questions that I used to ask. Those of you who follow Simon Sinek, he's written a beautiful book called Tell Me Why. So ask, when you ask why, so that's your curiosity. And that why question doesn't have to be external. The why question can be to your own self. Why are you doing something? Why are you in this TEDx? Why are you even listening? Right? What is it that you're going to take away? Why? So that's your curiosity index and that's your curiosity factor. And we will have to move from power to curiosity, because when I walk into a meeting room, in that meeting room, if there is a woman there presenting, or anybody for that matter, and even so a woman presenting there, I do not want an audience that's looking at their phone, that's trying to interrupt them, that's already tuned in mentally that this is not working for me. I need that shift. And the third important shift is from inclusion to belonging. What's the difference? Inclusion is saying, I am giving you an opportunity to speak. Belonging is saying, I want to hear your voice. I want to hear your point of view. Your opinion matters, and that is why we need to hear your voice. We need to listen to your voice. It's not, I am giving you. You may speak. You may have a voice. So to move, that whole shift has to move from what we call from inclusion to belonging. Right? So a world which is redesigned for listening, where classrooms celebrate questions that are asked, workplaces where every voice has a space for airtime, where doctors listen to their patients patiently, homes, we say, hey, is there something that you want to share today? And it's not prescriptive, but it's listening. So that's the whole world that we want to redesign. And societies where when a point of view is expressed, you are not labeled, you are not judged, but there's openness to accept a differing point of view, listening to a very differing point of view, where voices can just be free to speak without being labeled, right? So that's what we mean. So most importantly, before we end, and I know we can't play the video, I want you all to take just 30 seconds, okay, and close your eyes and visualize an ocean. There's a beautiful ocean, expansive. We're in Chennai, so you have beautiful beaches. Think of an ocean, and in that ocean, just think of the waves. Think of the sound of the waves, the ripples. Just think, you're in front of an ocean. So, in that silence, what did you think? What went through your mind? Did you think what's next? Did you label? Did you judge? Because the ocean teaches us everything. Without stating, without raising its voice, without being opinionated, without being repetitive, no two waves are the same. But when you truly, truly listen to the ocean and the waves that come out of it, it tells us everything. And what does it tell us? Voices unbind when someone listens. And so, my dear friends, it's not about who is the loudest. It's not about is my voice loud, because voices truly unbound and unbind themselves when there is a space for listening attentively without any judgment. So please listen the next time, and thank you very much.